December 1st, 1957, Starkweather picked up Carol as usual from Whittier Junior High around 3 p.m. But that particular day, the 19-year-old was on edge.
He had been kicked out of his family's home. He was locked out of the boarding house where he was living. He was afraid he was going to lose his girlfriend, afraid he'd lose his car. So he thought crime was probably his only option.
It was here at this gas station on Cornhusker Highway where Starkweather went from teenage punk to teenage killer when a robbery ended in kidnap and murder.
Well, after Starkweather kidnapped Colbert, he actually brought him over to this general area. This is right around 31st and Superior Streets. The two struggled, and then there was a shotgun blast that actually put Colbert on his knees, and then Starkweather went ahead and finished him off with the second shot.
When was the body then discovered by the authorities?
It was within a very short period. It was like about within 2 days.
Was there any sense of what this crime was about?
No. At that time, it was just an unsolved murder. Nobody really made any kind of an association at that point.
So nobody had any idea what was to come?
No, no.
Starkweather wouldn't kill again for 7 weeks, across town in the house of Carol's parents. On the 21st of January 1958, an argument between Starkweather and Fugate's mother and stepfather exploded into a bloodbath.
This was where the first real nasty murders happened. This was where Marion Bartlett was shotgunned. This is where Velda Bartlett was murdered, and this is also where Betty Jean, which is the 2-year-old sister, was killed, and she had been bludgeoned to death and stabbed. They disposed of the bodies. Velda was dumped down into an outhouse. Marion's body was put into a chicken coop, and then Betty Jean was simply thrown out in the garbage. And then they stayed here for like a week, what he referred to as like living like kings, as long as they were here. And as people were coming to the door, they had put a sign on the front door saying that everybody would have the flu and to stay away.
And I suppose they must have lived with the corpses within sort of 10 or 15 feet of where they were, as you say, living like kings. You had any sense, Bobby, of what it would have looked like at the time of the murders?
Yeah, just the house, we're not very far away from it at all. We could just walk there again about 50 feet or so. And then in the back was the chicken coop, more over by towards the clump of trees and off to the left just a little bit, and then the outhouse off to the left as well.
I've seen photographs that were taken from people standing right here pretty much in the same area that we are, and you'd be impressed to see how accurate you were on that.
I was alarmed at just how cold the facts of this case were, but the deeper we sank into this brutal story, the darker it became.
Did you hear that? Wait. Something is over there.
Our paranormal investigation into the spirit of Charles Starkweather had brought us to Lincoln, Nebraska, the killer's hometown and a city which the 19-year-old changed forever when his murder spree took the lives of 11 innocent people. We were following the footsteps of Charles Starkweather's gruesome tour of death in January 1958. Starkweather and Fugate fled this house in the Lincoln suburb of Belmont 6 days after the brutal slaughter of Fugate's mother, stepfather, and half-sister. The couple headed out of Lincoln towards the small rural town of Bennett and the farm of a man named August Meyer. On the dirt track that led to the farm, Starkweather's car became hopelessly stuck. They walked up to the house on foot.
The farm was a typical Nebraska farmhouse, a large white house. Myers was a bachelor.
Charlie?
How you doing?
What are you doing out here?
Had some car trouble.
He knew August Meyer, felt Meyer owed him money.
He was shot with a shotgun right inside one of the doors.
It would not be long before they killed again. The following day, Robert Jensen and his lover, Carol King, were driving along the deserted lane near to Myers' farm when they came upon the fugitive couple.
There. You all
Jensen was a considerate and polite young man, and fatally for him, stopped to see if they needed any help.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
At first, Charlie kind of acted like he was befriending Bobby Jensen and asked him, in fact, if he could, according to the reports, if he could get a ride to Lincoln.
But the atmosphere soon took a dark turn.
Get out of the goddamn car! Slow down. Give me your wallet! All right. Let's go! All right.
He took him to a abandoned cellar of a house approximately 220 yards from where the car was located and killed them both very viciously, and then took the Jensen car back into Lincoln.
He apparently did attempt to rape the teenage girl and mutilated her genitals with a knife.
The bodies of Robert Jensen and Carol King would not be found until the following day. By that time, Starkweather and Fugate were already back in Lincoln, holed up in the home of wealthy industrialist C. Lauer Ward, where they had his wife and maid hostage.
They forced their way into the house, and they tied Lillian to the bed upstairs, and then they forced Clara to prepare some food for them, and they took turns sleeping and what have you. And then when it was all said and done, they still wound up murdering Clara. They murdered Lillian Finkel upstairs. They stabbed her several times with a knife. And then when Mr. Ward came home, there was a fight, and he was shot.
Do you get a sense, Bobby, that they knew their time was short? You know, once they started this killing spree, even though they weren't the brightest bulbs in the box, they must have figured out.
No, not now. It feels like right at this point, it's still full throttle.
From what you see, was Carol a hostage at this stage, or was she part of it?
No, she was never. No, she was never a hostage.
On the 29th of January, 8 days since the killing began, Starkweather's tidal wave of terror spread across the border from Nebraska into Wyoming.
They run across a traveling salesman named Merle Collison, asleep by the road. Charlie taps on the glass and fires 9 shots at this guy, kills him.
Not long after the cold-blooded killing of Collison, America's most wanted man was caught in nearby Douglas, Wyoming.
The deputy sheriff and others were shooting at him from behind, and one of the bullets went through the back of the car and pierced his ear. Starkweather came to an immediate halt.
One of the sheriffs of Wyoming said that was Charlie Starkweather. He was just a yellow SOB, is what he said.
Starkweather's final decision was also a cowardly one. Faced with the choice of the gas chamber in Wyoming or the electric chair in Nebraska, he chose the chair. The governor of Wyoming at that time was opposed to the death sentence. If he'd elected to come here to the Wyoming State Penitentiary, he may still be alive today.